I'm Ann Webb, Policy Director with Common Cause North Carolina, and these are 5 things you need to know in North Carolina politics this week. This week we'll be taking a closer look at Senate Bill 747 and how it will harm North Carolina voters. Number 1.
Right now, legislative Republicans in North Carolina are pushing an all-out assault on the right to vote.
On Thursday, Governor Roy Cooper vetoed Senate Bill 747, which was passed a week earlier on a party-line vote by the Republican-controlled legislature. The first thing to know is that Senate Bill 747 could disenfranchise thousands of North Carolina voters who use absentee voting by mail. Here's some background. Under a long-standing law adopted with unanimous support by the legislature in 2009, mail-in ballots postmarked on or before Election Day have been able to be accepted by county boards of elections up to 3 days after Election Day. That's been an important safeguard to help ensure voters don't have their absentee ballots unfairly thrown out because of delays in mail delivery that are no fault of their own. But Senate Bill 747 would demolish that 3-day grace period entirely, jeopardizing the ballots of thousands of North Carolina voters. If Senate Bill 747 had been in place for the 2020 election, more than 12,000 valid mail-in ballots would have been thrown away. The loss of the grace period could especially hurt older voters, people with disabilities, rural residents, and anyone who relies on casting a mail-in absentee ballot as a lifeline for exercising their freedom to vote. Number 2. Senate Bill 747 takes steps to make North Carolina's already stringent mail-in ballot verification process unnecessarily complicated. North Carolina voters currently must have 2 witnesses or a notary sign their mail-in ballot and submit a copy of a valid voter ID or an exception form. On top of those existing requirements, Senate Bill 747 would initiate a 10-county pilot program for computerized signature verification of mail-in ballots in the 2024 primary election. Signature matches are often unreliable, especially as a person's signature changes over time due to factors like age or disability. Studies have found that older voters, voters with disabilities, voters of color, and first-time mail-in voters experience higher rejection rates when it comes to unreliable signature match programs. This change won't make our elections more secure. It would just add unhelpful burdens on voters and election officials. Number 3. Senate Bill 747 prioritizes giving power to partisan poll observers despite objections from county election officials. Partisan poll observers are members of political parties who observe inside polling places. These are different from nonpartisan poll workers and election officials who assist voters. Senate Bill 747 allows political parties to make observer appointments as close as the day before those observers will be at the polls, substantially shortening the time for election workers to raise and address any concerns with those observers. These changes would burden election officials who are already managing a long list of responsibilities and could make it more difficult to ensure poll observers abide by limits to what they're supposed to do in polling places. Number 4. Senate Bill 747 bans crucial funding sources for our elections, while failing to provide funds desperately needed to fill budget shortfalls. The bill would prohibit state and county boards of elections from accepting nonprofit grants that in past elections have helped ensure our local elections ran smoothly. For instance, nonprofit grant funding received by 97 out of 100 counties in 2020 was necessary to pay for supplies to keep voters safe and ensure accessible elections during the COVID-19 pandemic. But Senate Bill 747 would cut off that funding, even as the legislature fails to meet critical funding needs for our election system. Number 5. Those are just some of the harmful provisions of Senate Bill 747. We at Common Cause applaud Governor Cooper for vetoing this anti-voter bill. We're calling on legislators to uphold the governor's veto and to stop attacking our voting rights. We know it will be a challenge to defeat this bill because the bill's sponsors have supermajorities in the legislature, and they'll likely attempt to overturn the governor's veto. And so we need your voice. Visit ccnc.me/findmylegislators to see contact info for your members of the General Assembly. Tell them what you think about Senate Bill 747. North Carolina is fortunate to have a secure and accessible election system. Instead of dismantling important voting safeguards or creating onerous barriers to voting, legislators should be building on the success of our election system and empowering our voters. But Senate Bill 747 fails to do that, and it should be rejected. Those were 5 things you need to know in North Carolina politics this week. Thanks for joining, and find us anytime at commoncausenc.org.